Hey everyone, welcome to the Cozy Jug Studio. My name is Sharon and we are kicking off Christmas with some dark and moody, a little bit of messy, maybe a lot of messy, and just some cool techniques. I hope you all are ready to get messy because I have found some of my favorite Pinterest inspired ornaments and I pulled up the photos of them. Some of them I did look at to see how they were done, but most of them didn't have any links. They were just photos someone else had saved from someone else. Anyways, these are just supposed to be inspirations, not a copy of someone else's work. So I hope you guys like this video. Now don't forget, most of these products that I've been using can be found at Aunt Bee's Attic or on Amazon. Look for the links in the description box below. I also carry the DIY paint line and recycled decoupage papers in both of my antique booths in Hickory and Hudson, North Carolina. Now, if you like this video, don't forget to comment below. It really helps my channel, and hit that like button. With that being said, let's get on into this video.
The first thing we're going to start with is these clear glass ornaments. Now you can use plastic ones. They do sell those, but I was at Walmart and I needed some and all they had was the glass. Plus they really ended up looking beautiful, so I am thankful I got the glass. I was super excited because I love amber glass and I saw this post on Pinterest that I saved a while back, so I will have the photos and the name of the person that did these at the end of this video. Let's go ahead and get started. Now I'm going to be using these alcohol inks here. You can see them in the photo or on the video. Just stop it and pause it for the colors. I started with the color butterscotch and caramel, and it wasn't cinnamon. I'm sorry, you'll have to look at the video or I'll have them linked below. These are alcohol inks by Tim Holtz or Ranger. It doesn't matter the brand. I was thinking of something else that could be used for this instead of alcohol inks. If you have magic markers, you can take the felt, you can take them apart, take the felt marker out. I don't know that you would get enough ink out of that by itself. You may mix it with some straight alcohol to get enough color to do this with, like with a brown or possibly a brown and a black. There are videos on YouTube of how to make your own alcohol inks, so look for those if you don't have alcohol inks but you have permanent markers or Sharpies. It has to be alcohol based. Okay, so I'm just pouring these down in and twirling them around. Now I found the trick for this was you have to get your heat gun dryer, hair dryer, and you have to try to get it to stick and dry in between coats, because if you do this and then you let it sit, it all drains out. It doesn't all drain out, but some of it drains out and it's still, it's no good. It's very clear. You're not going to get a coat after coat. I ended up drying in between each coat every time, at least 3 coats to get the color I wanted. Now mine ended up very dark compared to the photo. I mean, you can still see through them, but this is a kind of almost a perfect color right here, but it does not stay this way. You have to dry in between coats, and I'm getting ready to show you some footage of that. Now you can see I'm just squirting that in. Okay, so see this? This is one that I coated and dried and coated and dried. I didn't want to put all of that on video because I had to figure out how to get it to stick. I'm sure whoever that I link probably had all these instructions, but you guys, I'm really bad for just looking at pictures and deciding in my head how they did it. I do follow instructions sometimes, but on this, I knew alcohol inks would do it because I've used alcohol inks on glass. I had a lot of these, so I pulled out a bunch of colors that I thought would be an amber color. So you can see I'm just twisting it to get it to cover the whole interior and then drying as I go. I also made sure that if the ink pooled in the bottom of the globe, that I just poured it into the other globes because I didn't want to waste it. And if you get too much in there and it won't dry, then, well, if you get too much in there, it won't dry. And once you twirl it around and around, if there's still too much in there and you set it up to dry or drain, it's going to waste a lot of ink. So I made sure there was minimal ink in there once I did tip it up, because I just didn't want those, it would have taken a long time to dry, even though alcohol ink dries really quickly, but inside of these globes, not so quickly. For the tops, I went ahead and decided I was going to paint these gold. I started using Rub and Buff, and I did do quite a few with just patting it on, but the Rub and Buff Rub and Buff will stick to almost anything, but it didn't want to stick to these, so I ended up going back with just some of that Folk Art gold. I think it was Real Gold Paint was the name of it, but it's just Folk Art gold paint. They have lots of different colors. That finished these off. I put a couple black bows on them for some photos, but other than that, I love the color. When the light shines through, they do look like really dark amber glass. Let me know what you think of these. And I've got the photo of mine coming up and the photo of the inspiration as well. All right, so the person that did these is craftberrybush.com. That was the resource. I found it on Pinterest. Here are mine, and here is craftberrybush.com's. Now, they do say in their instructions they made theirs look like leopard print. In other words, they did a lighter color and then they dropped little drops of a darker color and let it dry like that. I really just wanted this just plain amber look. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you like these? These were very simple to make once I realized that I had to do the drying technique to get the coats to get dark as I wanted them. You all, this next project was so cute when I saw these, and I didn't really realize they were from the same person that I saw the amber ones from until I just looked up the information for this video. So I started off with just some plastic gold ornaments from, of course, Walmart, because I don't, believe it or not, I only have a couple totes of Christmas stuff, and I really didn't have any ornaments that could just be used to upcycle. And honestly, I got a big thing for another $3.98 from Walmart, so they're pretty much cheaper than the craft store or the junk stores. So I just went ahead and bought some new ones to do this with. So what we're going to do is paint these some base colors of these. I'm using Folk Art and Apple Barrel and more of like a chocolatey brown color and like a spice or terracotta color. You can use anything similar to these colors. Just choose which ones you want. Clay paint or the chalk paint would have worked better because they just cover better on slick surfaces. But like I said, I've really been trying to use up some of my older paints and small stock. So you'll see me using a lot of different things until I get that used up. And then this, I think it's Spiced Berry is this color. It's one of my favorite colors of the Apple Barrel paint. So I'm just giving these 2 good coats and letting these dry thoroughly before we move on to the next step. The next step, I have already pre-poured out some of my paints. I'm going to show you all the colors of those at the beginning of this next part of the video. Again, I'm sure you have paints in your stash that you can use for this or even mix together to get some of these colors. So we're going to start out with some painted, these are painted already, these dark colors, and then this spicy color, and I've got just a few of the same size and then one small one. That's the only downfall of buying a big kit of ornaments that are all the same size. You don't really get a lot of different sizes, but I'm going to keep my eye on the lookout for hopefully a bunch of different sizes and get some so I can have them for new projects coming up. All right, so now I've showed you some of the paints that I'm using. I'm using a gold ink here too in the corner. I don't know if I just showed that, but if you have acrylic inks, pull those out. There's so many things you can do that you may have in your stash, or even acrylic ink sprays or paints, spray paints, whatever. Use whatever you have. You can take spray paint and paint these to begin with, and then use this type of paint to go ahead and finish them off. So I'm just putting some metallics over this solid color just to get a good base of color on here before I get started with the actual pattern that's going to go on here. The next step is, once I get these metallics on here, I don't know if I do all of them, but I just kind of put some metallic swiping around, kind of make it look like fur. These are going to be little ornaments that look like deer. So I asked my husband, I said, do you know what these are? And it took him a minute, and then he was like, I said, think of an animal. And he was like, oh, deer. And I was like, oh, that's good. When I first saw the photo, I knew exactly what they were supposed to be, but I don't know if that's just a creative thing or what, but these turned out so cute. All right, so what we're doing here is we're mimicking a stripe And I'm just going to do mine all the way around. I don't know if the photo, you'll see the photo coming up. I didn't read into how she did hers. I just looked at the photo. But I'm just painting this stripe, and I'm going all the way around the ornament, a dark color, or at least a different color than the base, and drying that. And then I'm going to use some white chalk paint to make it look like there's white hairs coming out from this stripe. And you can use, different brushes for this. You could use a fan brush. I'm just using a little tiny brush and just mimicking those stripes, or not really stripes, but the hair-like follicle things. And then I'm taking some other paint to kind of tone it back because it just seemed too white to me. Now, I could do this at a different step, but I chose to do it during this step. I'm just kind of toning that back because I really want it to look like it's hair of different colors. Once we get that finished, we are going to start using some of that white paint to make some really tiny dots on the stripe, just in the center for now, to make it look, like a deer that has the white spots. And these are going to be quite tiny, and you'll see the next one that we do are going to be a little larger. We're going to go ahead and finish this off, at least the pattern part, with some very large dots, more sporadically, not so close together, on the rest of the whole ornament. We're going to repeat the same process with the next ornament, but it has a different base color. It's more of the terracotta, well, it's more of a dark cinnamon color versus terracotta, but we're going to be doing the metallic kind of over it and then move on to our stripe. But this one, we're going to turn the stripe sideways and not up and down like on the last one. I did forget to mention that you don't want a lot of paint on your brush when you're doing the white fur. You want it mostly to be like dry brushing. So with this little chocolate looking one, I wanted to use some copper looking metallic, and I had that acrylic ink in the metallic. So I just got it out and started using it. I really am trying to show you guys a lot of different mediums you can use for all of these ornaments, even down to ink pads, and you'll see that coming up. One of the reasons is I didn't have all the colors in metallics that I needed, in paints, but I did have them in things like ink pads or acrylic inks. So I just dug through my stash to find those colors that I wanted in whatever type of medium it was. And not only that, maybe this is all you have is a bunch of ink pads and some acrylic paint. Maybe you don't have the inks in the liquid, or maybe you have metallic paint, but you don't have the ink pad. And another reason, when you try a bunch of different things, then you learn what works best for you. One thing I found near the end of making this video was, ink pads are awesome to color these ornament hook holders. I don't know what that's called, but the little top of, I've been painting it almost the whole video with a paintbrush when all I had to do was take an ink pad and go around the top. And how I found that out was I liked the color of my gold ink pad and thought, man, I wish that was the color of my gold paint. And I thought, you know what, why not just rub that on there with the ink pad? Well, now I found out an easier way because I used a bunch of different stuff. Anyways, so this one we are just doing that fur and no dots on it. And for some reason I lost the footage of where I did do the little polka dots, but you guys seen me do that on the other ornaments. And these last two ornaments are just going to be the little furry ornaments with little dots. And that completes our set. Now I do go ahead and use DIY Big Top as my sealer on these, and I paint the tops of the little ornament holders. I paint them gold. I don't even think I have them on here right now, but I do paint them gold. And now here are the first three photos are of mine, and the last photo is of that craftberrybush.com where I saw it on Pinterest. Let me know what you guys think of these, if this is something you might try. And let me know which one is your favorite in the comments below. I am so excited about this project. So I got these two ceramic trees from Mighty Dollar, which is, everything's $1.25. I wanted to make some terracotta green trees. I knew it, I wanted to do it, and I decided I was going to try to find something to do them with. Here I am, I found these, which these were already a green color, and it was pretty, but it wasn't the color that I wanted my terracotta to be. And yes, I know terracotta is not technically green, but I'm calling it a terracotta tree. So what we're doing is we're using aviary from DIY, and I'm using a little bit of water because this stuff is really, really thick. I've had this one for a little while. These are really simple. Honestly, it's just painting them whatever color of green you choose, or if you want traditional terracotta, you can paint them that color. I only had to give these one coat because the paint was so thick and they were already green underneath. I'm going to let that thoroughly dry. Then we're going to use some Rust-Oleum matte finish to seal these off, as well as use it as a carrier for or something for our powder to stick to. Now you can use baby powder, you can use cornstarch, you can use flour, salt wash. There's all kinds of different powders you can use on these, but I'm using baby powder. I'm not sure why. I have cornstarch here, but I had a little tiny bottle of this, so I thought that I would just get it out and use it because it has a little shaker on it. Now I'm sealing these like I would normally, and then I'm going to let them dry just a little, enough to get soaked in and the shine to come somewhat down, toned down, which means it's soaking in, but you want it to still be damp to wet because we're going to put our baby powder on top of that, and we need something for it to stick to. All right, you can see that my top coat is almost drying. Some of it's still quite dark, but some of it's lighter. I'm just sprinkling this on and rubbing it into that already kind of wet or damp areas. If I get too much, I'm just going to take a paper towel or a dry baby wipe and just wipe some of it back. This does end up sticking in some of the wetter places, and then also in between the brush strokes. Oh my gosh, you guys, I love how these turned out. You'll have to let me know in the comments below. Is this something that you've seen before? I really did look for, I tried to type in green terracotta trees or just terracotta Christmas trees. I couldn't find any photos. That doesn't mean it hasn't been done or isn't out there, but I love this effect. You all let me know if you have seen any, where they're at. I'd love to look at them. And the photos are coming up of these trees. Once these did dry all the way and the powder did its thing, they did turn out lighter, and I love them. I think they look just like a green terracotta tree. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. We are going to continue on with some powdery goodness. I painted these several different colors in advance so that we didn't have to worry about that. It was some of the ones we've already seen, and the DIY Old School and Sandy Blonde, and I'm not sure what the green one is. It might be Aviary. And what we're going to do is we're going to use these metallic ink pads to add some just metallic in certain areas on these. The photo looked like they used metallic and then added just the paint. Oh, I did go, that's right, this one is from Instagram. I did see her do this on Instagram. Some of it. I don't know that I actually seen all of it. But so I just started rubbing it randomly all over. I used gold on this one, and on most of them I did add some of that bronzing to one of them, but I didn't use the silver. Once that ink dries, we're going to do the same process that we did before. We're going to give these a good coat of that matte Rust-Oleum clear coat, and we're not going to let it dry all the way because we're going to need that sticky tacky for our salt wash, in this case, to stick to it. I decided to use salt wash just to see if it was, you know, better, different. It turned out about the same. So I'm just going to get some of that salt wash and pour it on there, and then I think I end up rubbing it on there and then rolling it in it. It was fun, y'all. I really enjoyed this. Now you'll see coming up, here is the photo of mine that I did, and then here is the photo of hers. And I think she used quite a bit more ink than I did on mine, but nonetheless, I enjoyed it, and I think I did paint the tips of those gold as well. So we're going to try another technique, and I really need some gold that I like, and I like this gold, but it's not the right color, and honestly, it still doesn't end up being, you know, the right color, but it does end up being similar to the process that we're getting ready to do. Now, I have painted these weathered wood by DIY, and then that chocolate color by Folk Art, and I'm just mixing these two golds together to get more close to the gold color that I want, or think I want, because we're going to be using this on these. And as you can see, I was too lazy to go get something to mix this in, so I just dumped it on my silicone mat, which has been through it, you all, this mat. Well, I have a dark gray one that I use sometimes, and then this is a light gray one because I have a couple different stations that I work at, but I just dumped it on here because this mat is so easy to clean. Anyways, so now what we're going to do is we're going to paint this I end up painting this whole thing the gold, and I will tell you I am a little bit out of frame some, and I do apologize for that, but we're basically painting this whole thing gold and then letting it dry. That's going to be the first step here. Now, it doesn't matter if I get down too much in the crevices because I have another plan for those. The main thing is that the gold ends up really, it ends up being on the tips of this pattern, but what I should have done was only painted the tips in hindsight, and you'll see from the photos at the end of this one. And now on this next one, I'm only painting the waves, the outside of the waves, the high point, and not the inside. And you don't need to worry about doing a great job about this because we are going to go back and put that weathered wood down back in the divots just to kind of tone this back because I get it all over the place. I mean, I could have used a smaller brush. You know, you could tape it off, but I'm not doing that. It's just easier to go back with the weathered wood and get back down in those crevices because I'm going to need that for the look of this one. And for the last one, we're just going to go over it with the gold too. I'm not really trying to get it down in the crevices or anything because I'm not sure how this one's going to land. It was a little bit different pattern than my inspiration photo, but I thought I would throw it in there because it was a really cool pattern and had a lot of texture. All right, once we let these thoroughly dry, now see they're dry, and see where I did go back in the middle with that weathered wood for the one with the divots in it. So once these are thoroughly dried, now we're going to be using some waxes on these. Oh my gosh, I love this technique. But before we do that, we have to seal these because we want to be able to wipe the white wax and the dark wax or the black wax that I'm going to be using back. So the sealer is going to allow us to do that. If we don't, which this is acrylic paint, so to be honest, it's very slick. It would probably wipe back pretty easy, but not with that DIY paint, the weathered wood. So we're just going to seal them all, let them dry really good again, and then move on to the next step. It looks like once these dry, I do go ahead and coat the little tips with some of that kind of brown and the weathered wood and the, I think some of that spiced color, because I'm trying to make the tips of them look like they're rusty and oxide looking. So I did that first before moving on to the main part of the ornament with the waxes. So first thing, I get my black wax out and I just cover it with the black wax. I go ahead and do all 3 of these, a good coat, and I don't really wait for them to dry. I start wiping them back. And this process really is very messy. My hands are filthy. I should have wore gloves, but it's fine. It washes off. So I wipe that black wax back. The point right now is I'm trying to get that black wax down in all the crevices first. What I should have done was possibly let it sit for a little while longer and set up because it's very creamy, and once it air dries a little bit, it will stick more. The reason I'm saying this is because I actually ended up doing this whole process twice, and I feel like maybe if I would have let it set up a little longer that I wouldn't have had to do it twice. I don't know, I could be wrong. But once I do that, then I'm moving on to the white wax, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to coat this again, and then I start wiping it back, and I decided that I had to change it up because it just wasn't giving me the look that I wanted. All right, so I go back in immediately with the black wax, cover it again, wipe that back, and then that's when it hits me that I need to let the white wax sit a little longer the second time around. I probably should have done that with both the waxes. It's been a hot minute since I've used white wax, you guys, and I really didn't realize how much I missed it. I love this stuff. Okay, so with this second coat, I put it on very thick, and I'm letting that sit while I move on to these other pieces to do the same process. I'm wiping back that initial black wax and now going in with a thick coat of the white wax. Now that I know it, I didn't have to do 2 coats on these last 2 because I kind of figured it out with the first one. Now that I have let these sit for a little bit, I'm being very careful about mostly taking the gold off of the tips and not getting the whole pattern, the white off of the whole pattern. That's where I messed up because the original Pinterest inspiration shows the tips as being gold, which I still don't hit it quite the same, which is fine. I do love how these turned out. They just look so patinaed and oxide, and you guys will have to let me know. Am I getting like super excited about something that is, not that exciting? I don't know. I love this kind of stuff. But so I'm going to do that with each one, paying attention to where the gold needs to come through. On the ones with the waves, I need to make sure I rub hard enough to get the gold to come through on the edges only, but also giving a little bit of that dark to come through in the center, but leaving a lot of that white. And here is the photo of mine, along with this Truva. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. This was actually an ad for shopping, so this was from a department store or maybe an online store. I'm not sure. This next project is some velvet red poinsettas, and I really wanted to change the color of these into more of a coppery color, so I'm going to be using that Liquitex acrylic ink. It's actually called Rich Bronze, so it's more of a bronze color. I did have the Rich Copper, but it was very orange, and I just didn't like that, so this one seemed more toned down. I didn't have this color in paint. And this actually worked better because it was more like a liquid, so it soaked in really easy into these petals of velvet. I did flip the backs over and give them a good coat And once this dried, it was stiff. You could use water and probably a softener if you wanted to stay soft, but I didn't really care. I just wanted to change the color. I love the color. The red did kind of make it change to a more coppery color, but it's okay. Probably if I'd have done 2 coats, the red might not have affected it. I am showing you that chocolate bronze, or that chocolate metallic color that I have, but it was a little bit too brown. Let me know what you think of this one in the comments below. Our last and final project, here is the photo inspiration. There was no information on this on Pinterest. It only stated by Rita. I'll have that at the end, but we're just going to jump right in. This is going to be using lots of products, lots of mess. I hope you're ready. The first one is this black ornament that I have pre-painted. I went ahead and pre-painted all of these. We're going to be using this alcohol ink. I just squirted some on, and then I tapped it or rubbed it around with a baby wipe or a dried paper towel. And now I'm toning some of that back with some of this gray from DIY paint. It is the old school. I just keep referring back to my photos or my inspiration photo to finally get the look that I want. Once we let this dry, we're going to go ahead and start adding some black wax onto this. Now, while I'm doing it, I realize that I do need some champagne color on this, not just the gold. So I just go a little crazy and I start doing black wax and wiping it back and then adding champagne gold and then yellow gold. You guys, you know how I am, you know how I do, and I just do it until I like how it looks. There's not much rhyme or reason because there was no instructions on this. I tried to click on the photo and then it went to another photo and it just kept saying it was photo was posted, but there was no link, nothing on the description on how to make these. But I'm telling you, I loved it. It was awesome. I enjoyed it so much. You all have to let me know. Do you like this kind of messy mixed media? Lots of layers. You know, people always comment and say, well, you wipe that back and then you put it back on. Really, like how we started out with the black base, it was needed. And then we needed that gold. You couldn't just put a drop of gold on. It had to be mostly all over because when you wipe back, you need the gold to show. So you have to have several layers. Yes, sometimes you do lose a lot of what you did put on, but in the end, the layers is what makes your project look like it has a lot of texture and just like it has that depth. This one is pretty close to being finished, and I do end up sealing this with a matte top coat and also doing that kind of oxide metal rusty look as for the tips on these. This next one we painted sandy blonde, and now we're going to use that champagne gold or it's like a pearl color, to go over this one because the base of this one needs to be a little bit of a metallic. And then we're going to add some more of that, or some of that DIY old school, just pouncing it on randomly. We're doing some a little bit at the top because the one out of the inspiration photo kind of had this at the top, and then it had just some splotches here and there on it. And then we're going to let that dry. Once we let that dry, we're going to go ahead and add some of that DIY black wax all over it and then wipe it back. And that's going to give us the look that we want for this one. We're just going to seal this one in and paint that little top and be done with it. And I love how this one looked. You guys, these all fit in so well together because they're all kind of different but cohesive. This next one I have also pre-painted black, and we are going to use our gold alcohol ink to just do mostly half of this with just a little bit of that gold kind of coming up. We're going to tone that back some with that DIY paint. And I do apologize for being out of screen on some of these. I was getting closer to myself and farther away from the camera. but I used the gray to tone back the black and the gold. You could use black, but some of these definitely look like they had gray and black. So again, I'm just kind of eyeballing these, mixing that in so that it just gives it more of an organic, natural look. Now I'm going to go in and take that black wax and go ahead and start waxing on the gold part to tone that down some, because the gold, although it does show in these, it's peeking through versus just in your face. I go ahead and wipe that back some, and then I realized that my inspiration photo had more of that sort of gray black going closer towards the bottom. So I went ahead and just grabbed my brush and started just, again, giving that more of the gray down at the bottom and making it look more organic than like I just painted half of it gray and half of it gold. And I'm using some of that gray to bring up from the bottom. Our next one is going to be a similar one to this, except for it's going to be spray painted first. I did start spray painting some of these, and then I changed my mind because it just didn't give me enough chalky effect on them. So I went ahead and started using this one, and it didn't even get completely covered, but it doesn't matter. That red is going to get covered. We're using the silver in this alcohol ink, and I am just patting this on. I really end up having fun with this one because I bring in some of the salt wash for this one, and I almost didn't even add it because I did cut out a lot. You can just see part of it, but I thought it would be better because I love the way this one turned out. So like I said, I'm just tapping that with a baby wipe or either a paper towel, and then I bring the salt wash in and I just kind of pour it on this wet ink, and I start tapping it, and look at that. You guys, I love that. Look at that gritty. Oh my gosh. And I just keep patting it and getting it on there with the salt wash and the ink. I did do quite a bit more of these, but like I said, I have lost some footage. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed these techniques and learning to do some things with me as I learn. Let me know what you think of this project. Here is my photos, and here is the inspiration photo. And I will see you in the next video.